we own. As I was saying, your child, since birth, they've been programmed to be a repository of consumer knowledge and awareness. Between the ages of 1 and 3, the parents' dyad is being marketed to. They're marketing stuff for healthy babies, moms and child together. After that stage, though, after the child is on his own, they're directing marketing straight to that kid. They're the first adopters, and they're the avid users of any new technology or any new product. And they also are pretty, they're hiring psychologists, really. They're looking at it through a psychologist perspective when they develop advertisement. I'm going to talk about more of this to come, but they're using neurobiological theory and developmental theory to target what's going to target the child or the teenager most effectively. And I'll get into how they're doing that. UCLA brain mapping is doing some research on that. So to give you guys a little background of the brain, just basic neurobiological theory, and this might get a little dry, but I'm going to talk a little about how what's going on. There's 3 parts of the brain that I'm going to talk about. It's called a triune brain. So 3 parts. The reptilian part is basically your brainstem, and I like to use sort of my hand in describing this. So my wrist is sort of representing the brainstem. This is where you have your fight, flight, freeze, impulses, instincts. This is the kind of behavior that, for instance, you're about to go up and do something scary, and your body goes into like automatic sort of preservation state. The next part of your brain, which I use my thumb to represent, is the limbic system, and this is your emotional house, basically. It's the part of the brain that contains your emotion. And then above it is your neocortex. That's the newest part of your brain. That's where your logical thinking is done. Where you're processing logical thought. A lot of your good judgment would come from a neocortex that's developed. So what UCLA, their brain mapping center, what they're looking at is fMRIs to identify an fMRI, taking a picture of the brain and basically seeing what's lighting up. And they're identifying what messages are reacting in advertisement. What they've determined is that a successful ad is it's creating a neurological downshift, as I call it. So what's happening is you're up in your neocortex, but you're sitting down with a TV with a bowl of popcorn to watch CSI. An ad comes on, and the ad, if it's successful, is able to take you from your logical thinking zone down into a limbic area. It's supposed to create a feeling. It's supposed to create maybe excitement, maybe, and the more feeling it creates, the more successful it is. And that's kind of where I think a lot of children get this idea that I need this, almost from a feeling sense. I need this product. If I don't have this product, I'm not going to feel good. It's something common. So the other thing that creates a difficulty here, and what we're talking about is how to communicate later on with your teenager. When they're in that limbic zone, they're not. It turns the other part of the brain off. They're not able to think logically. It makes sort of talking to them very difficult, and especially with teenagers. I'm going to get into this next here. I call it the teenage trifecta. There's a few things going on with the child that's also can create challenges for parents. And so I'm going to talk about each of these and And for some teenagers, development goes smoothly. The stage is not that difficult. For others, it's extremely difficult. We've got changes in the brain. I call it a restructuring, neurologic restructuring. In particular, that part of the brain that's the logic part, that's being completely restructured. There's also a biological inclination. Your teenager's inclined to take risks. And then there's their developmental stage, this identity crisis that they're sort of going through. Does anyone have any questions right at this point? Yes.
The way that you describe how the ad affects, or they're trying to target the emotional part of the brain, is that typical only to adolescents? Is that what you're saying? Or
It's for all of us, adults. The study actually is being done on Super Bowl ads in particular. So that's for adults. For children or adolescents, it's the same though.
But we are somehow able to resist that?
Well, that's kind of, yes. So as adults, we have a developed neocortex. We have good judgment. We have, we're probably better drivers.
Hopefully.
We're probably, we have more impulse control, and we have more ability to think logically about, and that's not just because of our experience, a life experience, that's because of this part of the brain is very developed in adults. In children and adolescents, it's not developed. It makes them more susceptible. Does that make sense? Okay. It's particularly it's relevant with spending because I'm going to talk about it more, but what's going on in the brain, the changes going on in the brain, they're going to receive a rush from spending money. Similar how they receive a rush from using drugs, some eating issues, this kind of stuff. Starting with the prefrontal cortex, which is within that part, this is that part of the brain. This is where, again, this is in the neocortex, this is where the house of logical thought. This is the part that's being restructured during adolescence. There's a surge of, do you guys all know what dopamine is? Neurochemical, it's surging into this zone right now during adolescence. So, this part of the brain is sort of underdeveloped. It doesn't allow for certain cognitive behaviors. Planning is a little bit impaired. Some social behavior is used to correct social behavior. Also going on is a surge of testosterone or estrogen, and that's also affecting this area of the brain. And sort of a perfect storm of chemical reaction, so to speak. So it really is impairing decision-making, impulse control, and it's heightened. The impairment is heightened during stressful situations or emotional situations. Those of you with teenagers, when there's a breakup or when there's a problem with a dating situation or a friend situation, it seems like the end of the world. The emotions are high, the emotions are intense. To sort of bring this same concept into spending or seeing an ad or wanting something, it's sort of housed in the same way in the brain. Does that make sense? Okay. Risk-taking behavior is another piece of what's going on with your teenager. They're supposed to take risk. This is, evolutionarily speaking, this is the risk they're taking, leaving the parent or the family and going out to seek a mate, which is, that's what puberty is all about. Today, though, in our society, drug use actually is the highest the most likely form of risk-taking behavior, statistically speaking.